Hello and welcome to everybody. This is the Sheffield, ME and Fibromyalgia groups hosting this year's Millions Missing event.
Millions Missing aims to celebrate the ME community and raise awareness of what it's like to live with this condition.
Hello everyone and welcome to my lair. I'm one of the people who live with ME. Every year in May, patients, caregivers, charities and other organisations come together for the Millions Missing protests worldwide to campaign for biomedical research funding and to draw attention to the 15 to 30 million of us who live with this disease and months, years or decades ago went missing from our lives.
And overall, the campaign aims this year are around increased research funding, as always, because it is so low in comparison to other diseases that have a similar or even lesser impact, and then also around graded exercise therapy.
I got glandular fever in my early 20s, and unfortunately for me, I got prescribed graded exercise, which made me 100 times worse, and actually it delayed my eventual diagnosis of the underlying thyroid condition. And the difference between like the pathway of care for having post-viral fatigue or and eventually being called ME and having a thyroid condition were just a million miles away from each other. So I think that for me, that kind of really showed me how limited the support is at the moment and how, it's very much reliant on the community.
Many doctors still believe that graded exercise therapy is helpful, even though a survey in 2018 found that over 80% of ME patients who tried graded exercise were made permanently worse.
I think we can both divert people away from graded exercise. That feels really important. So the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence is currently updating the ME guidelines, but that's been put on hold because of this pandemic. And so in the meantime, this recommendation of graded exercise therapy remains in place, which is a really major concern.
Despite what you might have heard about ME, it is not simply about fatigue. It's a complex and devastating illness that affects the immune, endocrine and nervous systems and for which there is currently no cure. Far from simply being tired, sufferers, like me, experience a range of debilitating symptoms, from pain to loss of cognitive function, paralysis, vertigo, sensitivity to sound, light and touch, and much more. Around 25% of ME patients are housebound or bedbound, and around 75% of us are also unable to work.
And it wasn't until about 5 years ago, maybe, that I started to become more housebound. And then about 2 years ago, like fully housebound, really. And bedbound a lot of the time, like I have to lie down most of the time. You learn how resilient you are, even if you don't feel it a lot of the time, and you get frustrated and pushed to the brink of your own ability to cope time and time again. But I think, you sort of learn how resilient you are and the importance of small things as well.
A lot of you right now are getting a really small taste of what it's like to be housebound, and I know it's been difficult for many of you to adjust to. But imagine for a moment that there's no end date for being housebound. Imagine that you became housebound alone, while the rest of the world and everyone you knew continued on without you. Imagine that you went to the doctors only to be prescribed exercise, which made you sicker and sicker and sicker until you could barely walk. Imagine that this illness that you have receives less research funding than male pattern baldness, even though repeated studies have shown that ME patients have a lower quality of life than patients with congestive heart failure, multiple sclerosis, and other serious health conditions. It's important that you imagine this now, because without a doubt, a whole new cohort of ME patients are about to join our ranks, whether they know it or not. And this isn't just scaremongering. ME starts after a virus. With every viral outbreak, there have been patients of all ages and from all backgrounds who got sick and didn't die, but never recovered either.
I got a virus.
I didn't die.
But I never recovered.
Right now, we don't know what the numbers are for COVID-19. And while it's important that we track data on mortality rates, we should also be tracking the rate of chronic conditions and severe disability that will persist for months or years after this outbreak has passed. There has never been a better time to push for research funding for ME, for a chronic condition that is triggered by a virus and leaves its sufferers trapped.
That we need these longitudinal studies in place. We need to be following up on people. And there's bits of that happening, but we need to be asking the right questions so that we see what happens after this and how many people get ME. And I think that's something that we can all ask our MPs to fight for in Parliament.
I've also got a message here from Louise Haigh MP. Solidarity to all the Sheffield ME and fibromyalgia group, who I know will be struggling during lockdown. I'm proud Sheffield MPs always stand shoulder to shoulder with you and keep campaigning for better resources, research and awareness.
Obviously, it's a really serious issue about accessing benefits, and it is something I'm actually already taken up. About just over a month ago, I tabled parliamentary questions, which I'm awaiting a response, looking at the evaluation process for people with ME in relation to PIP. It seems to me it's part of the wider problem that you face as a campaign group of an inadequate understanding of the condition. So I'm trying to get some more information from the department so that we can push that further.
A couple of weeks ago, we sent a 6-metre long card to NICE with messages from people with ME across the country and globe, actually. So there was 2,006 names on it and 1,200 messages, hence why it had to be 6 metres long, that just describe people's experience of graded exercise and what they've been going through and asked for change now.
And the first poem is called Myalgic Encephalomyelitis. I'm missing. Some see glimpses of someone they knew. Others view slivers of a person they'll never know. I hover between who I was and who I'll never be. How do you know if the caterpillar in a cocoon is dead?
Becca's one of our trustees and she does these amazing cartoons. It's fantastic to have her as part of the team. And indeed, I think we can probably all recognise the effect that Zoom has on us. So, yeah.
I found a spoon. It was during the COVID-19 lockdown. I'd been in self-isolation since February with a cough. And as I have ME, it was going to take some time.
While you're stuck at home getting a tiny glimpse into the lives of those of us who never recovered, watch Unrest on Netflix. It's a documentary about this illness made by Jennifer Breer. It premiered at Sheffield's very own DocFest and won an award at Sundance, and there has never been a better time to watch it. When you've watched it, get angry. Share our stories on social media. Join the Sheffield ME and Fibromyalgia group or your own local group. Donate to organisations like ME Action and the ME Association. Donate to biomedical research at the Open Medicine Foundation and invest in ME. Help us today so that in future years people don't go missing from their lives, and so that maybe one day soon we can get back to ours as well.
Today